What the Tech is sponsored by Hover.com. Domain names made simple. Go to gfq.hover.com and get 10% off your entire purchase. And by Stitcher Radio. Listen on the go via the Stitcher mobile app. For more information, go to stitcher.com/GFQ.
What's the tech?
Welcome, everybody, to another star-studded lineup to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Yes, star-studded lineup.
Star-studded, but...
I'm Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by internet celeb himself, Paul Thurrot. How you doing, Paul?
I'm so uncomfortable with that title.
Internet celeb or Paul Thurrot?
Yes, both of those.
For people just tuning in for the first time, this is the show where Paul and I complain about Android. No, it's not actually. We're not going to complain about Android this week because I have a lot to say about Android, and it's fairly positive.
Yeah.
So eat that, GFQ viewer 6493. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. No, Paul and I discuss things that we like, things in technology, not necessarily tech news, but whatever that comes to mind. Of course, you can go to our website if you miss any portion of the show, or you tune in late, or if you just want to go to our website and chat with us. You can go to gfqlive.tv and chat with us there. We have a great chat room, about 65 people in there right now, and I'm sure we'll hit about 100 by the end of the show. And of course, you can go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. You can also visit Paul's site, winsupersite.com, for all things that have to do with Microsoft and Paul Thurrot. So, Paul, you're going on Friday, right? You're doing your big trip.
Yeah, it occurred to me that I should have added something about this to the notes because there's some technology-related discussions to be had around this. So we do a 3-week home swap every summer, usually in Europe. This year we'll be in France near Rouen, which is north and west of Paris. There's usually like a last week spaz attack that occurs before we go because, we have to clean up and whatever. People are coming here and going to be living in my house and so forth. But, we take a caravan of technology with us. I'm trying not to be completely compulsive about it, obviously. But, I was thinking back to the very first year we did this. I took the entire contents of my home server, or whatever I used at the time, in the form of a USB 2 hard drive, like a huge hard drive with a power supply, And this year, I don't think I'm going to be doing anything like that. I think we sync our stuff with SkyDrive, and I don't. It's weird how much less I have to worry about that kind of stuff.
Well, it's gotten a lot easier. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, 5 years ago, you had to back everything up and take it with you, right?
Yeah, literally. Yeah, and then I would I basically had a local version of my whole environment with me, and then I would copy it all back when I got home. But we have remote access to my home servers now. We have the SkyDrive type stuff, and I just don't, aside from a hard drive that I'm going to put movies on for the kids, so they can watch stuff on their laptops or whatever, or sync to their devices. I'm not really going to worry about that too much.
One of the big mistakes that I make whenever I wipe out a phone or one of these tablets is that I always forget to back up the pictures.
Yeah,
I'll always forget to do them because for whatever reason in my head it's somewhere in the cloud.
Sure.
I guess maybe because it's on Facebook or it's on whatever, but now I install Dropbox on all my devices now, and Dropbox automatically sets it up where it takes your camera file, whatever's in your camera folder, it'll just back it up to the cloud. So every picture that I have automatically, as I take a picture, goes straight to Dropbox.
Yeah.
And I cleaned up my phone and I actually rooted this, which we're going to get to, and I forgot to back up my photos. I backed up everything except for my photos, and I remembered, I'm like, wow, Dropbox does it automatically, so it kind of saved my butt there.
You always forget something. I try to go through that every time. It's like if you use iTunes, you forget to deauthorize your account, and you lose one of the computers, or Adobe Photoshop is another example, or Photoshop apps that you pay for where you have a certain number of activations. I always forget something like that. I think actually what I'm going to do, the people who are coming are going to be using my computer. We usually just set it up with a guest account, and of course I use Windows 8. And it occurred to me today that I just pulled this out. I have this hard drive that came with the computer, and I literally pulled it out the day the computer arrived, it just has Windows 7 on it. I think I'm just going to pop it back in the computer and just plug it in and let it, let them use Windows 7 and not really worry about it.
Are you now? What do? You back everything up how for yourself? Do you do like a backup because just in case something were to happen to that computer?
No.
While the guest is there?
No, it doesn't matter. There's nothing on here that isn't somewhere else. I mean,
oh, that's good.
All of the main data that I work with for work, the articles I'm working on, is all synced through SkyDrive, so that it's on every single one of my computers, and in the cloud. The master copies of my stuff are on my home server, which is backed up to the cloud as well. And there's just no reason to. This stuff is duplicated and replicated and backed up, and it's just unless I'm on an awful dial-up connection in France, I should be all set.
You should be fine. Yeah. So last week when we started the show, I believe I had just received my Nexus 7. Paul was still waiting for his. You got yours, I think, later that day. Like
an hour later.
An hour.
I want to make the point, by the way, that when it arrived, knowing how awful it was to unbox this thing, I was prepping myself for the finger fumble thing where you do the bar of soap thing and it goes flying in the air. But actually, I got it out of the box really easily. I wish I had taken a video of it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I think I did it live on the air, and I had already opened it. But the first time when I opened this thing, I was thinking it's going to be this insane thing to open. But the tech bloggers really made a big deal out of it. I have to tell you, Paul, 1 week with this device, I have not used my iPad. I've used this exclusively when I have to use a tablet.
Can't tell you, by the way, how happy what you just said makes me. But please continue.
That I didn't use my iPad for a week. Yeah. I am a big fan of this device. I think they did a great job. I think, first of all, the hardware, it's not Google, it's Asus. They did a great job with the hardware. It's a nice little tablet. It feels right. It's not heavy. It's not too thin. It's just about the right size. Decent display on there. Camera's awful, but who cares who's taking pictures with this thing? But as far as the Google experience, the new Jelly Bean operating system that they have on here, it's so close to being there.
Yeah, it is close.
I mean, it's just so close. And the reason why I say
what don't you like about it?
I'll tell you what the biggest problem is. Applications crash constantly on this thing.
Okay.
I mean, almost every application that I have used on here, and I'll tell you what it is. Not Facebook, not Instagram, not Twitter. I'm excluding those three. Flipboard, Stitcher, Empire Tower Defense 2, Netflix.
Yep.
And Winamp. They crash on me constantly. I mean, almost every fifth time that I open up the application.
Is, clearly, none of those apps have the word Google in front of them, and I think that's why they're crashing. And,
well, no, I'll tell you what else crashed for me. The Google Store. Play.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've had good... So, I've done a lot of stuff with the content stuff that Google has. So, I have Google... music going, obviously, and I've downloaded some stuff. I've streamed some stuff. That seems to work fine. I've rented and purchased TV shows and movies. That seems to work fine. When I went to New York very briefly last week, I used that device on the trip. It was fine. I'll use it on the plane, in Europe. I'm trying to stick to the one thing I like about it is it's like I said to you before the show started, it's kind of a combination of Amazon plus Google. I don't know if you could install the Google Play Store on the Kindle Fire. I suspect you probably could. I've actually not tried that, but I do like the fact that you can kind of do both on this device. I think that opens it up a bit to some new stuff because I like the Kindle ebook reader stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to play games on it. I'm not going to update Facebook on it. I'm not going to do email on it. I sort of think of it as a media device.
And that's exactly what it is. Yeah, no, it's a great media device. It's not an iPad competitor because we're not in the same size.
Well, no, right. But for me, it serves the same purpose, and thus for me, it's actually better than an iPad because it's smaller. I like the fact that you can connect this to your computer, set it up as an MTP device, and just copy video files to it. That's fantastic. One of the things I don't like about the iPad, aside from the size, is the fact that to do that, you have to go through iTunes.
Yeah.
I hate using iTunes. And the fact that I could just copy files to this thing normally, it's actually kind of huge. I know it sounds dumb and kind of old school, but it's like the one thing I've really kind of missed. It's the one thing I'm going to like a lot about the Windows RT type devices because I'm going to be able to get on my home network, copy files over from the server, and just go with them. I like that kind of thing. So
now the magazine experience again. You said it last week that it was a little sluggish on the Kindle, and it is a little sluggish on this.
It is on this, yeah.
I mean, do you know what the reason is for that? Why they can't get the magazine experience to be?
You know what? The magazine experience on this is very reminiscent of the magazine experience on any of the other platforms. So if you've done this stuff on the iPad with those interactive books that Apple has, that you're downloading this one giant thing. So if you want to read a book or you want to read a magazine in this case, that thing that you're downloading is humongous. It's really big. It takes a long time to download, and I think it's the ponderous size of the documents that they're using that's part of it. I think that's part of it because it's pretty looking. But it's the same old thing again. It's a small screen to view a magazine full page, right? No one can really read that text without scrolling in. So you do the pinch to zoom thing, and then after a while you just switch to the plain text mode if you actually just want to read the thing. I think at first you just want to sort of experience it. I'm going to flip the page, just look, it's like a magazine, and then after a while you're like, okay, I just want to read the damn article, there's just I think it's probably like reading an interactive PDF. It's just a big, heavy thing,
The book experience is not bad on this.
The Google book experience.
Yeah, not bad.
It's funny that I'm not even sure I looked at it. I think it was like the first thing I deleted from my home screen was Google Books.
Because you don't use it, yeah.
Well, because I use Amazon, but in the process of testing Google Books in the past, I did, in fact, buy books from what's now called the Playbooks store. So I'm just going to look at it because there is stuff. Yeah, I can see stuff in it. Does it do like the page flip animation stuff?
Yeah.
See, it's like loading.
It's not awful. I mean,
okay.
Again, but here's the thing. Well, by the way, last week we wanted a comparison in size. This is the Kindle, and this is
they're very. I mean, they're so close. And I have a Kindle case, a Kindle Fire case. It fits this device perfectly. It's absolutely perfect.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll fit. Let me see this.
The one that I have. Yeah.
Oh my, yeah, it does fit. It fits exactly the same.
Yeah, it's exactly the right size.
Yeah. So I like the device. Now I want to talk a little bit about the Google experience on this thing. Whatever they did with Butter really worked well.
What is Butter? What part of it?
It's the backbone, I guess. It's the way that it functions, how it's smooth.
Because like the animations as you go between things. And
just everything is buttery smooth. And
it's funny, if you're familiar with the Fire, you know that the front end to it is that awful kind of carousel interface that everybody hates.
Yeah.
And it is kind of awful. But it's funny, if I'm understanding what I'm looking at, there's the display of this is very reminiscent of the carousel in some ways. It doesn't flip through space or anything, but it's basically, but I believe it's just a widget or gadget or whatever Google calls them, called My Library. And it provides a kind of dynamic view of the up to 10 items that you most recently bought or read or listened to or whatever. So I've got a couple albums here, TV show, a couple books, a movie rental, there's some music, album art, covers in there. And it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? I mean, it's in this case, it's almost 80% of the screen. And it's just, here's what you did most recently, because chances are the next thing you're going to do is jump right into those things. And then in the bottom, in a very typical Android way, they have shortcuts for 6 icons that they pre-populate with all the Google Play stuff, and it's a fairly efficient thing. I mean, just as a single screen experience, I mean, it's nice.
Yeah, no, it's really nice actually, and I do want to say this. I'm a big fan of the operating system itself. I liked it so much. I took my Nexus, my Galaxy Nexus. I rooted the phone, which I wasn't going to do, and I installed it on there. And the experience on the phone it's night and day.
Really?
It's such a better experience. And I was a big fan of Ice Cream Sandwich. I thought they did a great job from gingerbread to this. But it's so much smoother. I mean, just...
Okay. Because I hate the phone.
You don't like the phone at all.
I hate the phone. But I don't know how to explain the difference. But, by the way, for whatever it's worth, this is true of the Galaxy Tab as well. It's got a similar kind of a UI, right? There's something about it on the tablet where this UI to me makes sense. And of course, the Google Nexus 7 tablet works and looks more like the phone that you're using. But I don't know. Does it fix that? I don't know how to explain it. Like, I just don't like it on
You
the
don't.
phone. I don't know why. I can't really, explain it well, but I don't like it.
No, I think they fixed a lot of the issues on here. It's a lot faster. I mean,
Yeah.
they really tightened up the operating system where it would get sluggish in certain situations. But again, it's plagued by the same problems. You know, applications crash. The apps aren't as evolved as they would be in the iOS store. There's still some inconsistencies that I'm not happy with. But overall, they've done a decent job. The Google Now system that they have on here, really cool. And I'll tell you why. I went to the beach. It told me it knows my house, apparently. It knows where I live. And I don't remember setting it up, or I'm sure I had to have. I don't remember doing it, but
that's pretty much just how Google works.
Yeah, it knows where I live. And it kept telling me, like, hey, there's a 45-minute delay on the LIE. Do you want to pick a different route? And every time there would be an update, and then it's like, hey, listen, 36-minute delay. 45 minutes. Like, it does these updates automatically in the back end. So it tells you if there's going to be traffic. And I thought that was pretty useful.
Right.
And I guess the way it works is that if it knows you like certain restaurants, like if you check into places, it'll eventually say, hey, you're right by this place. Do you want to go there? I actually found that to be really useful in certain situations, especially the traffic thing. Now, I don't know how useful it'll be for restaurants, but it's something that they have that Apple is not doing yet. And I found that very interesting that they were leading in this category. Now, I don't know if you'll ever use it.
You're going to get some hate mail for that comment, but
for which one?
The notion that Apple is not leading in any
yeah,
area.
I know.
is
I mean, I think they did a decent job with it. I actually really like it. Some people are, they find it a little creepy. I really don't.
Right.
You could turn it off. You don't have to give them the information if you don't want to. But I think that's a useful feature for it to let you know where it is. Now, if I'm on the train track, I took the LIRR the other day. I was on the train track. It knew where I was, and it told me the train schedule. Pretty useful.
Yeah. That's the type of stuff I think that people are going to be,
weirded out about.
They're gonna feel pretty strongly about it one way or the other.
But see, you and I will probably feel strongly about it. But how about Joe Schmo that just got this phone? What are they going to perceive? Are they going to think that this is some sort of invasion of privacy? Because the same people that are complaining about the Facebook privacy stuff are the same people going on Instagram, on Foursquare and posting every little place that they visit.
Right.
So I don't know how that perception is going to change now that it does it for you rather than you doing it. I thought that was a cool feature, but overall, I like it. I like it. I don't know if I'll like it in about another week when everything stops working.
I like it too. I mean, my only thing is, having used the Kindle Fire a lot recently, especially having used the other one. I mean, I think these things kind of boil down to the ecosystem stuff. I mean, this thing is, it's like an endpoint for the Google Play stuff. I mean, that's what it is. It is a front end. It's a hardware front end to Google Play.
How about, is the phone a front end for Google Play as well?
Not in its current incarnation. There's something about, an Android phone, because it's a phone, people tend to put things on it like Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And they go out and about in the world and they do their things. And that's the type of device it is. And there's something about this tablet where it's really just a personal media device, I think, like a content device. You're going to read books, you're going to watch movies, you're going to play games, you're going to listen to music. It's kind of a content thing, and so it becomes, because that's what Google, Google sells all that stuff. And so it becomes sort of a front end to that story. You don't have to use that stuff. You can use the Amazon stuff. And Amazon covers a lot of that stuff, not all of it, on the Nexus 7 anyway.
But I mean, aren't they all? Even the iPad is just a consumption device. I mean, everybody puts the iPad in some special category, but I've been doing everything that I do on the iPad on this device.
See, that's the interesting thing to me. I mean, a lot of people will say that about the iPad. They'll say, look, I've been doing everything I used to do on a computer on the iPad now, but it's a lot simpler. There's going to be some segment of the population will say, I can do everything I can do on the iPad on this thing. And so there's obviously some crossover there, but you know, the size of this device I think limits its usefulness as a true productivity machine. I don't think, and it's the difference between, well, I don't know, it's not clear if it is this different, but you know, you can have an iPod Touch, an iPad, or a computer. If you handed someone an iPod Touch and said you can do your email on here, you can browse the web, you can check in on Facebook, you can do all this stuff, they you know, they probably wouldn't do too much of that. You move up to a bigger screen with like an iPad, and suddenly all those things become very possible. Does a 7-inch screen allow that, or is it more like the tiny screen you have on an iPod Touch? It's kind of hard to say. We now have this kind of range of devices that have different screen sizes.
I think I also want to use this device a little bit longer because it also has that, ooh, it's new and shiny aspect to it. You know, this is something new. Wow, I could fiddle around with this because, you know, we like to do that. I think that also plays a big part. But I'll tell you this part that I find very interesting. When I got the Kindle Fire, I was not interested in the Kindle Fire. I could not replace some of the things that I do on the iPad with the Kindle Fire, but I am with this.
I can see that. I can't explain. I mean, it's not that different, you know. Part of it might be just the fact that you're more the Google stuff is more like the Apple stuff. I mean, I know that sounds kind of strange to say, but the Kindle Fire is just set up in a way that it's a little different. It's a very unique UI. It's designed to not make you ever think of Android, right? It's supposed to be like it's an Amazon thing or a Kindle thing. This device seems like an iPad, doesn't it? It is like a little iPad.
Sure.
So it has that kind of vibe to it, and maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean that could be it also. But we'll see we'll see how, if I like this in the coming weeks, I may turn around and say, wow, this is a piece of junk and I hate it, and I'll go back to the iPad.
I'm curious. One of the things I wanted to that kind of falls into this category is I'm curious to see what happens when I bring this around Europe. Right?
Are you taking it? You're taking it with you?
Yeah, so there are strange things that happen when you bring a U.S.-based account to Europe, right? So, for example, I can't use Netflix in Europe. It detects that I'm in Europe, and it won't let me do that. You know, but I can make purchases on iTunes. That works no problem. I'm curious if, you know, I don't remember the Amazon stuff. I think I can deliver things to the Kindle. That works fine. Actually, there's a charge if you do it to a Kindle device, but you can just download it manually. I'm curious about the Google Play stuff. If I'm sitting in France and I say I want to rent a movie and I just do it, will Google just allow me to do that?
Oh, that's very interesting. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see.
I know for a fact that the Google Now stuff does not work properly.
Really?
Yeah, the voice stuff does not work in the UK currently.
Part of Jelly Bean? That's a new thing, right?
That's
Google
part of
Now.
Jelly Bean. Yeah, that's part of the new stuff.
So you got that on your phone when you rooted it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because the rooting process it's so simple.
Really?
I mean, and I did it on the Mac, and and this is mind blowing. It's much easier on the Mac than it is on Windows. I mean,
that's the story.
I know, and I didn't. And I actually I brought my laptop up because I used to root, I used to unlock a lot of my Windows phones.
Right.
And, you can't do it on a Mac. So I'm coming from that experience. So I got to take out the laptop and I'm connecting and I'm reading the instructions. And one of the posts said, well, it's easier to do it on a Mac. All you do is drag a couple files and just put a terminal command and it does it automatically. So I'm like, oh, you know what? Let me give it a shot because I've done it on Windows with my Droid, but I never did it on the Mac. So I did it on the Mac. Very easy to do. It was a 1, 2, 3 experience. It took less than 15 minutes to root it and put the new ROM on. I sung all the applications, synced properly, and I was up and running within, let's say the hour. But the Google Now stuff was not working for a while. When I initially went to go use it, I kept, saying, what's the weather like? And it would pull it up, but it wouldn't speak to me. I don't know if it has to kind of set itself in or to kind of do all this like data mining so it gets the information before it could speak to you. But after about 2 hours, it started speaking to me. I don't know if that was a glitch or if that's how the system works, but I found that fascinating if it's, grabbing this data based on GPS and your Wi-Fi to kind of know what to say.
Right.
I don't know how it actually grabs the information, but that was the only thing that that really didn't, do anything. Now, it could also be that I'm on a ROM, and that's a glitch of it. Some guy that made it.
Now, you have to go in and explicitly enable this, right? This is the...
Yeah, so when you search for the first time, when you use Google Search, Google search on the phone is now this. So it tells me right now, like, what to attack 4 p.m. It already pulls it up here. It tells me the weather.
Yep.
But it'll say, like, hey, do you want us to grab this information? You could enable or disable it. It's up to you. You could act like it's a regular search, or you could use this type of search.
Okay.
I like it. I enabled it because I wanna play around with it, and I don't really care that Google knows what I'm doing.
I think the types of people that would not like this are not going to own a Google phone anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
One of the cool things is it does offline stuff also, which is pretty cool. And it's crazy fast. Like, you could ask it some crazy math, equation, and it does it instantaneously. And I thought that was pretty cool too. But that's, the geeky stuff. Nobody else is going to ask it, the square root of 4,980.
Well, everyone does that once.
Once at least in their life. I did ask it some standard questions like who played Batman in the first movie.
Yeah.
And it pulled up it wouldn't speak to me, but it pulled up the images. Pretty cool. I like it. Battery life, I've noticed that it is better than ice cream sandwich. You know what I was going to ask you? What do you think of the battery life on the Nexus?
I think it's great. I mean, actually, that's one of the areas where the Kindle Fire wasn't fantastic.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I charge it about once every 2 days now.
Yep.
And I'm surprised how much of a charge it holds, considering I'm using it. It'll sit at about 60-70% for majority of the time.
Right.
But cool device. We'll see what happens.
This verifies everything I ever thought about the size device. I mean, I just remember this from the first iPad, where I was like, "Yep, this needs to be halfway between this size and the size of an iPod Touch, right here. 7 inches. This is ideal for me. I mean, again, I'm not speaking for the whole world. I know this. I know people love 10-inch tablets and whatever.
But what's fascinating? I'm using this now, and I like it, and I could use it as some sort of a replacement for the iPad. My wife loves the iPad, so she's using that. And I'm using this, and I'm not missing it as much as I would, let's say, if I was using the Kindle.
Right.
What's going to happen when Apple releases this 7-inch iPad?
Yeah.
And this is what I think, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, and I'm curious what the viewers think. I think that allure that this iPad has, this attraction that people have with this iPad, well, wow, it's the iPad, is not, the 7-inch device is not going to have that.
Sure. Well, it becomes a follow-up, for one thing, right? It's a different thing. I mean, the iPad, when it first came out, was kind of a big deal because it was new and unique, and there really wasn't anything like that, Apple, in many ways, would sort of verify that this market is important by entering it, but I don't think it's going to be the explosion that the original iPad was, but I don't think that's really the point. I mean, just like this device is designed to not let Amazon run away with the Android tablet market, the iPad, the presumed smaller iPad, is designed not to let Android run away with a market like it has with the phones. iPad dominates this tablet market, this new tablet market, but now these 7-inch tablets are finally starting to take off, and I think this is their hedge against that. It's pragmatic. It's smart. I mean, I really do think they need to do it, and I'm glad they're doing it. I've always, like I said, I mean, from day one, I always thought a 7-inch iPad was a great idea. So I hope they do it.
How much now we know that it's going to be released in September, apparently. I mean,
I really do think they need to do it. And I'm glad they're doing it. I've always, like I said, I mean, from day one, I always thought a 7-inch iPad was a great idea. So I hope they do it.
How much now we know that it's going to be released in September, apparently. I mean, those are the rumors. I'm not going to say it's definitely happening, but the rumors were that it's coming out in September. An iPad mini, I don't know what they're going to call it, along with an iPhone 5 are going to be released. Now, the iPhone 5 is going to have a 4.08-inch display. I'm curious on how the transition will be for people with an Android device that have like a 4.3-inch or a 4.6-inch display to kind of go down to a 4-inch display.
Well, I mean, remember, most of those people are going to be coming up from a 3.5-inch display,
which is
or whatever
tiny.
it is. Which is really tiny. My dad was in town over the weekend. He was asking me about the iPhone, and I told him that If you absolutely have to go to the Apple side, you got to wait because he's much bigger than I am. He's a 6'5", and I said the screen on this thing is way too small for you. And we ended up in a Best Buy coincidentally, and I walked him over and I said, look, and I put my phone next to the iPhone. It was like, it's like half again as big.
Oh, the iPhone is tiny compared to, what I have right now.
Yeah, it's like a toy.
So they're going to have a 4.8 inch, 4.08 inch display, a 7.85 inch display. So it's nearly double the size of the phone.
Yep.
And a 10 inch.
Sure. They'll probably make sense relative to each other, right? You have those three sizes. They'll probably have similar or identical aspect ratios and all that stuff. I mean, Apple will do a great job making that thing extremely thin and light, and it will get awesome battery life, and I'm sure it will be fantastic. So, yeah, I don't think there's going to be any surprises with that.
But September's going to be a very interesting month. I mean, the holiday season is going to be.
I know.
I mean, just
well,
crazy.
And don't forget, by the way, multiple new Android tablets coming. I'm sorry, Amazon tablets, right?
Yeah. I think 5 or 6, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just one, right? It's going to be a bunch of them. So we can expect there to be a Kindle Fire that's going to be very much like this Nexus device, I would think. High resolution screen, multiple core processing, et cetera. And, more memory options, I would bet, all that kind of stuff. So Amazon has a way of coming out with these devices where the first version is like kind of clunky and it's not necessarily attractive, and then they really get it right. And I expect that to happen there. So, and then of course we have the Windows tablets coming as well. So it's going to be a really, and I should say the Barnes & Noble, there'll be a Nook, new Nook tablets as well. So it's going to be a very crowded field.
A very crowded field. So what do you pick? What is the consumer going to pick?
It depends. See, it's so hard. Part of it's ecosystem, and you have to remember that these ecosystems bleed across. I mean, if you like the Amazon Kindle stuff, that doesn't mean you have to get a Kindle device. The Kindle software runs on everything. I think that's a great platform for reading. You just have to pick your device that way. But it depends on what's most important to you. The Kindle Fire, I think, primarily is an ebook reader that also does this other stuff. This device, the Amazon, the Google one is a Google Play device. It's just what it is. It's a content device. Once you move up to like an iPad, you're talking about the possibility of doing email and web browsing and productivity stuff. And
also, there's a new iPod Touch
coming this fall.
It's coming this fall as well. So
hopefully, also with a larger screen.
They need to get rid of 4-inch display with that. They need to get rid of. What are they doing with the other iPads? The iPods at this point. I mean, why wouldn't you just get that?
The Touch?
Yeah.
Well, because people have certain needs, right? They're always going to be the people that have humongous music collections and they need a classic, or the people that want to jog and they want something that's small and really teeny and light, and they're not going to notice on their arm or whatever. I think there's always a place for that kind of stuff. Pure music devices. One
thing that might give the iPad Mini, let's just call it that for now, an advantage is because it's not really a 7-inch display; it's almost an 8-inch display.
Sure.
So it has that extra size to it.
Yeah, and it may give them the extra density they need as well, right? So they can claim a Retina display type thing. And frankly, I even at like 1024 by 600, the Kindle Fire to me, when you read books or look at movies, looks great. Same thing on this one, the Kindle Fire. I mean, it's hard to keep these things straight.
I know.
The Nexus 7 has a higher resolution display, same size screen, so it should be crisper, and it is, but it's not super noticeable. I mean, honestly, when you're reading content or watching a movie or whatever, it looks good. I mean, you don't really. I've never looked at this thing and thought, wow, that there's like smoke in this movie and it's all blotchy, it looks terrible or whatever. I mean, it just looks great. And so I think we're kind of splitting hairs at this point, but most of these devices I think are going to be spectacular for most people, and it will just depend on what matters most to you.
I'm going to buy all of them.
Yeah, I probably will buy them.
I already do. It's crazy because I think, well, at $199 you could just pick up another one and use that, but I don't think the average person does that. I don't think normal people go and do that.
No, they don't. But the nice thing is, you're not really going to get stranded with a lot of this stuff. I think basically any modern Amazon, here we go again. Any modern Android tablet is going to be fine. Any Android Actually, device of almost any size would be fine. Any Kindle device is going to be fine. Obviously, any Apple device is going to be fine. They'll probably be a lot more expensive, but assuming you're into that kind of thing, you can't go wrong with any of that stuff. So I just don't see any bad choices.
No. I do want to move on from the tablet stuff a little bit, and I do want to talk about some people saying that YouTube is now forcing you to use your real name.
Yeah, I told you I saw this.
On yours.
Yeah. Here's how it happened to me.
Yeah, tell me, because I had not seen it on mine.
Anyone who's I have a YouTube account, right? So I had posted some videos. I have some personal videos, some work-related videos. At some point, I made the mistake of I put a video up from an Office technical preview thing earlier in the year, and I put it up in such a way that people could leave comments, which I didn't intend. And of course, people leave stupid comments, you know. And so I went in later and I changed it so that I had to moderate the comments. And now I get this email every time someone has a comment. And so the other day, actually just yesterday, randomly I get this email. It says, hey, somebody commented on your video. If you want to approve it, go here. And when I went in to do it, I'll see if I can, I'll never find it. But I went into the interface and it said, it actually told me I had to, you know, if you want to do this, you need to use your name now.
Yeah, I have not seen it.
So here's the thing. I want to use my name.
You do?
I would rather have my name. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would too. I have no problem with that. Now, the question is, you know, is this the end of anonymity on Google? And you know, is this the beginning of the end of that? I'm not against this. I know a lot of people really want to go by a username and they want to have this, you know, wall of protection in front of them so people don't know who they are. But I'm not totally against this concept that people actually have to be responsible for the way that they behave online.
This came up, I want to say, with Google Plus. Remember, the story was that they were going to force people to use their real names.
Yeah, you couldn't have like Paul, like Shiny Legs Thurrot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the people who have commented on this video. Some of them, you can tell it's their name. You know, it's clearly a first name, last name thing. Some of them, I have no idea what it is. Sometimes it's initials and letters and some, you know, Chinese characters, whatever. But based on the really crappy comments I see all over YouTube, making people use their real name, I think, is a fantastic idea. And there's always going to be some person who can come up with a reason where, you know, being anonymous online makes plenty of sense. But the problem is 90% of the time, it's done so people could be stupid, you know?
Sure.
You'll see some incredible video of some incredible thing, and there'll be some jerk in there either making light of it or somebody got hurt and they're laughing at them or whatever it is. And I just think that the anonymous stuff makes that more likely impossible, you know? And I can tell you from my videos, I mean, it's weird. It's weird how it works because I can see in it that when I posted it, it was as my name, as my username, which is Thurrot. But then when I commented most recently, it says Paul Thurrot because, you know, at that point it was like, you know, you have to use your name.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
So does it change your...
It didn't change the old ones. That's what's interesting about it. And so I think if you went in and tried to comment on this video today, even if you had commented earlier, now you would have to use your name, whereas in the past it was whatever.
But your username, your like account name is still the old name. It's still the old account.
Yep. Yep.
So what if you're like me and you have two accounts?
Oh, I don't know.
So you know what I mean? Like I'm just curious on how that's going to work.
Honestly, I think all they did was tie it into Google Plus. I think the real change here is that it's Google Plus. And I think that's what it is.
I think it's a good idea. I know people are really freaking out over this and they're really upset. And you look online and people saying, "Wow, you know, I don't want my real information out there, and I want to be able to comment, and I want to have this." But what difference does it make? Listen, I understand that the protection really helps you in certain situations.
Right.
You know, if you're I don't know, you're talking, you're outing something that awful, you know, something awful that happened, and you don't want to use your name and you want to be anonymous, so you get the message out there. I understand that. But, you know, I'm like, well, most of the people on YouTube are just calling, you know, they're just calling you an idiot, and it's probably some 14-year-old kid,
right?
You know, telling you suck.
Well, or I post a video about a Microsoft product, and I'm trying to help people understand what's going on with this thing, and then someone will come in and say, Microsoft sucks. Great, hey, that's great. Thank you for contributing to the conversation. Bob 1557X2B, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, it's just so pointless, you know? I think it's I think it's fine. I think it should be this way, but obviously others disagree. So
I don't know. I found that interesting, but I do believe that over the next, we're not playing the 10-year game, but over the next decade, I think a lot of the anonymity that we have now is going to be out the window.
Sure.
And already it is. Everybody's, if you make a comment, let's say on like an Engadget or a TechCrunch, I mean, it links up to your Facebook, right?
But that's just technology. I picture it being more like you're out in the real world, right? You can't drive 5 minutes from my house without running into some kind of a masshole who owns the road and the rules don't apply to them and they get to cut you off because they're going to go somewhere and they're important. And so you could call the police today and say, here's the license plate number. I want to know who this is registered to. And actually, that's public information. You can get that information. That's really inconvenient, isn't it? Wouldn't it be better if your car just had this kind of functionality built in? And you could actually find out who that person was. And then instead of having some kind of a road rage situation.
People act like normal human beings.
Maybe. If
Close.
No, maybe. I can't see. You live in New York. I live in Boston. Obviously, people are going to be what they are. They just are that way here. Sorry. But, I do feel that the same type of stuff you see out on the road is what you see online, where people feel that they're protected from you, either physically in a car, and that you're not going to ever be standing in their face, having that actual fight, and that they're never going to know who you are. And that whether they realize it or not, that it contributes to a kind of behavior that you would never have with someone
if you're standing next to them.
If you're standing right in front of them and you could actually see that they were a human being.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's healthier to be able to have that kind of honesty about it, that you can't be anonymous in your car cutting me off. That, in the future, there may be, people are freaked out about, cars that are going to drive themselves. People like, I like to drive, I don't want that. But I think there are these interim steps that can occur where it's just like routine traffic violations, and it will be the camera on the front of a car that actually captures the video of the guy driving through the red light, and it's your car that probably through Google, because it sounds like the type of thing Google would do, that automatically reports that guy to the police and he gets a ticket in the mail or whatever. It's going to be stuff like that. And, hopefully that contributes to the lack of stupidity, that people are no longer anonymous out in the world or online or whatever, and that maybe there will be more civility.
I think the last couple of years with services like Facebook, it's really shifted, and the perception that people have of the way that they behave online is changing also. Every comment now, and I forgot what I was listening to, and they were talking about the commenting system. And they were talking about, how it's changed on some of these sites. And they're saying, well, a lot of the trolls are not there anymore.
Right.
These guys that would come in and talk, just say this sucks or that sucks, Microsoft sucks, Apple sucks, and they would leave. Those guys aren't doing that anymore because they feel like idiots when their name is attached to it. But if you're, Apple sucks 42, and you talk about, how Apple's the worst thing in the world. Paul, I know that's you, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, no, it is me.
Yeah. I traced the IP. But you know what's fascinating? I mean, we get that in the chat room.
Yep.
We have maybe 5 or 6 guys that come in our chat. I mean, we're using IRC. I mean, we're using old school stuff. They come in and they'll say something, whatever it is, and then they leave. But we have their IP addresses. So when they come in with their normal names and they behave, they act like the person that they are. They're like, "Hey, Andrew, how are you?" I know it's them. I mean, everything is traceable, even down to the fact, even with anonymity.
Sure.
If somebody wants to find you, it's possible.
One thing I've really experienced is just how different things are when you can actually talk to someone.
Yeah.
How things can change. This is a terrible story, and it's probably an awful look into my own psyche. But 10 years ago or so, when we moved into this house, we didn't have a fence at the time. We had just moved in. And every Sunday morning, I'd be sitting in my kitchen, and I'd look out the window, and I would see some dog from up the street would come into my yard, even though we have a leash line at him, and would take a dump on my lawn, and then would walk back to his house. And so after 2 or 3 of these weekends, I finally had enough of that. And I went outside, put the dog mess in a bag, walked down to the house, rang the doorbell. The woman answered in her bathrobe. I handed it to her, and I said, "Your dog left this on my lawn. I don't expect this to ever happen again." She's looking at me like with this shocked look on her face, right? Because what they do is they let the dog out the front door every day.
Yeah.
It runs somewhere else, goes to the bathroom, and comes home. They don't have to clean it up. You know. By the way, it never happened again.
Never. Yeah.
But you know, it's just, you know, it's like, look, I know, I'm sure you either think nothing of it or you think it's funny. But now I want you to know that there's actually a human being that lives down the street, and there's someone who has to clean up dog mess, even though we don't have a dog.
Yeah.
You know? It's not. That's not cool.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. It's a nutty story. I had new neighbors move in next door, and we have a cherry tree. And when I was working, and this happened for about 2 years, I was working at that time, so I wasn't home. We would come home, and all the cherries were off the tree. So one year
they were picking cherries off your tree.
So you know what? We're like, you know what? It's the birds.
Sure.
The birds got to it. I don't know. They're waiting till we leave.
What are these, like gypsies or something? What are they? They're like,
very
there's
close.
like cherry pie always on their windowsill.
Very close. Well,
Cool.
None of them spoke English, so so I'm like, you know, but it's bizarre that they're all gone. Second year happens again. We leave. I mean, you know, because the cherries, I guess, grow. Sure. And it's like this 1 week thing. You got to pick them all off, or 2 weeks. You got to pick them all off.
Were they coming in your yard?
Yes.
What the?
I came home. Actually, my wife came home. My wife goes, "Are you around?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm actually on my way," because we both left work early that day. We had to go somewhere. He goes, "I'm not gonna say anything, but you come home. I want you to see what's going on."
Yeah.
And we get there, and there's like 10 of them. And they have ladders hooked up, and they're picking the cherries off the tree.
They have ladders.
They brought their ladders.
So did you talk to them?
Oh, I went berserk.
See, I would have.
I threatened to push one off the ladder. I took their cherries. I took the cherry, and I took their bowl. I took their ladder. It was a whole thing. I mean, I lost my mind. I lost it. I was a raging, and I was covered in soot that day because I was helping my uncle out. So I look like a crazy guy that came out of the mines,
right?
To yell at these people. I'm screaming.
This is probably like the biggest event of their year too. They probably look forward to this, you know.
I know, and you know what's sad? If they had asked, I would have given them the cherries.
I cannot believe they came in your yard with ladders.
3 years in a row. 3 years, and it's not like it was like the end of the season. Like they saw that we weren't picking the cherries. They would wait.
No, that's nuts. I mean, I lived in Arizona where there was lots of citrus, and so people had too much of it. No one ever wanted all of the citrus type fruits that you could grow in these trees. So if you wanted to come over and take lemons or whatever, everyone was always welcome.
Sure, yeah.
You don't take like the one. That's so terrible.
Oh, they're terrible people. Terrible people.
Are they still there?
Yeah, but they don't look at us.
So they're like the one neighbor that you don't really...
Yeah, they put up this gigantic fence, and they kind of built this barrier around them. But I mean, but that's just a perfect example. They were doing it because they knew we wouldn't know who's doing it.
Sure.
And then they got caught. So I don't know how this analogy works with anonymity on the internet, but the people who are trolling...
Work a lot like that. You're going to hurt some feelings, and then the stupidity is going to stop.
Yeah. So don't go around on YouTube commenting and taking people's cherries. That's all I have to say about that.
Right.
Why don't we play the 10-year game? Actually, no.
Okay.
Let's do an Audible pick.
Okay.
We haven't done that in about 2 weeks. So, Paul, what is your Audible pick?
Yeah, I'm losing track of where I was at, but I was doing a series of classic sci-fi picks. I mean, and by classic, I, of course, mean the sci-fi books that I grew up on. So Isaac Asimov, the Foundation and Robot books, Larry Niven, Ringworld, and his great short story collections. Logan's Run, I think, was in there. Ender's Game, books like that. All just absolute classics. But just to kind of round it out or complete this thought, if you will, some of the other great stuff from the 70s and early 80s was written by Jerry Pournelle and Larry Niven. They're friends still to this day, actually, and co-writers. They've written a lot of books together. And two of my favorites that are both by these two authors are The Moat in God's Eye and Footfall, and both basically involved with the same sort of story, which is mankind's first run-in with alien life, and how that goes. And I think the genius of these guys is twofold. I mean, one, they tell great stories and have great ideas, but there's always a bit of science behind it, and a bit of if you're familiar with Isaac Asimov, the same kind of intelligence. That it's like reading a Sherlock Holmes story almost, where there's like this kind of intelligent trick to the story that you're like, okay, and you feel like you're smart as a result of understanding it, I guess. But both of these are just fantastic, fantastic stories. And I was actually lucky, have been lucky later in life to meet Jerry Pournelle. He's also he was a longtime contributor to Byte Magazine and an inspiration for my own writing too, for whatever that's worth. So I've run into him and his son, also Alec, at industry events, and he still lives out in California. He still goes to events and still writes about technology. Is a very interesting character, but he's just a fantastic writer. So anything by Jerry Pournelle basically would probably be great. But I mean, especially the stuff from the 70s and 80s, just a kind of a high point for me. So if either one of these, I think would just be a fantastic.
Yeah, really cool pick. What year was this one written?
These are both got to be from the very early 80s or late 70s. Let me see I don't know if it says. Well, actually, the easier way would be to look him up.
I see that the audiobook came out 2009, 20 hours, so it's a long read. Let me play a sample.
Yep. I'll look at these up now.
AD 3017. Admiral's compliments, and you're to come to his office right away. Midshipman Staley announced. Commander Roderick Blaine looked frantically around the bridge, where his officers were directing repairs with low and urgent voices.
So I guess we make contact much later on.
Yeah.
It's not happening in like 1970.
Confusion of activities, each orderly by itself. But
So very, very cool. If you want to get this book, you can get it for free by going to audibletrial.com/GFQ. If you you go to our landing page, you get a free audiobook from Audible, and this is a great pick. $22 value, absolutely for free.
By the way, these books were 10 years apart. So Mote in God's Eye came out in 1974 originally.
Okay.
And Footfall is from 1985.
You know what's fascinating to read these books and to see certain aspects that they have, in the year, what was that, 3000 AD?
Yeah.
That we have now.
Oh, yeah. That's the best part of this. I mean, a lot of the stuff they've kind of predicted, because they see where science is going, and they're involved with the space program and, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
So very, very cool pick, Paul. It is time for the 10-year game. Now, I have two picks here. I cannot remember if we did one of them.
Okay.
Did we do the online retailers one?
I think we did.
We did this one.
I think we talked about retailers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other one, Paul, this was a question for you. I just added this one.
Right.
Could you pose a question to Andrew and Paul for the 10-year predictions? How will news media receive funding?
Oh.
How will this affect delivery? This in response to his posts on WinInfo short takes at Google Ads are down. That Google Ads are down.
Mobile ads, I think.
Mobile ads.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
In 10 years.
We're in this. I've tried many times to write a story about this. It's just too convoluted, and I've tried to restrict it to just one periodical, which is the New York Times. And the reason I picked the New York Times is because they're available in so many different formats, and they've tried so many different ways of getting people to pay for content. It's been very interesting to watch this evolution, and so we're in the middle of this thing. I don't know if you've ever noticed this kind of thing, but there are modern shows like The Newsroom, which is on right now on HBO, or you can go back to things like All the President's Men, the Watergate story. And being sort of in the media, I've always been fascinated by the notion that the media was important. That there were these guys who, came into work every day and all they cared about was the news, and that, they were the bastions of our civilization and that kind of thing. But sadly, the truth is that media is kind of going down. It's not the great respected thing that it was, and it certainly isn't something in the age of blogs and online websites and so forth that people are just not necessarily interested in paying directly for news anymore.
Yeah.
And you can see the decline in this everywhere. When I moved from Boston to Phoenix in 1993, the local news stations were very high quality. The Boston Globe was incredibly high quality. Moved back 10 years later, local news is a joke. It's just as bad as it was in Phoenix. And I'm sure it's the same everywhere in this country, where the local news is pathetic. The local newspaper is pathetic. It is a shadow of its former self.
Yeah.
And so I've watched, you watch this. You can see this in the Washington Post.
I mean, same here.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the same everywhere. But I've tried to write about it because I feel that these original first sources for news are very important, and that as they scale back for financial reasons, the Boston Globe can't afford to have someone in Lebanon and to have someone in Cairo and to have someone in Baghdad, and so when things happen, they're not going to have some local guy of their own reporting on everything like maybe they used to. They're going to have one guy from a wire service or from a parent company or whatever, and it's all second, third, fourth-hand news, and it the quality is just a downward spiral. So I think the future of this stuff is tied to the future of everything else that we do, whether it's consuming music or videos, movies and TV shows or books or whatever. That there's a combination of ways that they can afford to do what they do and to get you that content. I personally, and it may be just because of what I do, I pay for news. I pay for the New York Times. I pay for the Wall Street Journal. I pay for various periodicals. Have you ever been to a newsstand recently and picked up the pamphlet that is called Newsweek, that used to be this wonderful, thick, news weekly that is now apparently a photo journal of celebrities, like People Magazine or something? I mean, it's sad. But I think as we make this transition to digital and to online delivery and all that kind of stuff, I think all of these things could experience a renaissance if they're done correctly. And it's kind of hard to say where they'll be, but it could be a combination of ads, micropayments. So I think it's Financial Times, perhaps. You, for free, can get a certain number of articles per month, and you can pay per article if you want after that, or you can get a subscription. I mean, I think there's a variety of ways that this could go.
Well, do you think, as far as online delivery, right? Because that's where it's probably going to go. The media, it's all going online, and the delivery methods are going to be going online. New York Times has been pretty successful at it the last go around.
They've also been all over the map.
Yeah, they have.
I followed this along. It's very interesting. And even today, so for example, by the way, they have a variety of online accounts that you can have. One thing they don't have is any way to bridge the gap between your daily subscription on the Kindle and the wider New York Times, website and all that kind of stuff. Those two things are still, to this day, completely separate. One of the things that I do with the New York Times is we just get the Sunday paper delivered, because it happens to be the cheapest way that I can get unfettered access to all of their web stuff. Now, the problem with that approach is that if I want to read the New York Times every single day, I could do it on a mobile app. I could use like the iPad app if I was using an iPad, but it doesn't grant me access to the New York Times on the Kindle, which is actually how I want to read it.
Well, that's what they're going to have to do in order to kind of survive. They're going to have to say, okay, get the digital subscription and you get, Sunday, the weekend edition for free.
Yeah. I just fear they're going to be going away. Not the New York Times necessarily, but you don't listen. You could go to a place like Albuquerque or Denver or Cincinnati or whatever, and you go to Boston, and you can pick up the Globe here in Boston. And you can look at all the stories in the paper, and this is what you're going to see. You're going to see a handful of stories written by local authors, writers. You're going to see a lot of wire service reports, Associated Press, Reuters. And you're going to see content that you don't actually know this, but because the Boston Globe is owned by the New York Times, some of those stories are coming from the New York Times. And so it's kind of a hodgepodge of stuff.
Yeah.
And you may say, what's the difference? Does it really matter? It does matter. When I grew up, we had a local paper called the Daily Transcript. That there was a Dedham version, there was a Westwood version, there were versions for all the towns in the area. That paper was the stories about Dedham that were in that paper were written by people in the area about things that were going on in the area. They were eventually bought by a regional newspaper. There was a Dedham section in it, but it was just
it wasn't the same. Yeah. Well, we have the same thing here. We have the Bayside Times.
Yeah.
And there's a Bayside. It's all every area in Queens has it at this point, and they're online. It's interesting because the newspaper is doing awful. Obviously, I mean it's getting thinner and thinner. There's no ads. I mean there's nothing. But they have not, and I've seen this with a lot of local papers, and I'm talking local to the town. They haven't done a transition to going online, to going digital. And the digital section sucks. It's awful.
As it would be, yeah.
It's almost like they're in one gear, and they can't get out of it. And they're just coasting until that transmission goes. I think the New York Times, I mean, their ad model is definitely going to be based on subscription and some sort. It has to be a fusion of both.
Yeah. I hope that there are enough people who value the content enough to pay for it from high value sources. You know, I've never done something like pay for a blog to have it delivered on the Kindle. You know, people must do it, but I bet it's not too many people. I'm worried about it. I'm worried that the high quality sources of information are going to go away. I don't like the trend. There are two trends I don't like. One is inexperienced people writing about stuff they don't understand, blogs. And then I also don't like this notion of people not being exposed to things that aren't exactly what they agree with. You know, that because of all the personalization we have to our online stuff. I mean, even if I subscribe to some future generation of the Boston Globe or the New York Times, they're going to give me some option where I can say, look, I don't want international news. I don't care about that stuff. I don't want to be confronted with that, you know. I'll be able to check off on a list. Here are the things I'm interested in. And they'll hand deliver the things I care about, thus not exposing me to stuff that may in fact be valuable for me to know, or may round me out more as a person, or whatever it is, you know, that we're only going to, you know, maybe I'm a right-wing nut job or a left-wing crazy, and I only get news that's related to those two different things. And that becomes like a self, you know, serving awful circle of death, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you become more and more insular and not open to opposing ideas. And it's scary. That there's a scary future there.
No, you're absolutely right. So where do you go in 10 years? I mean, where does this go?
I'm scared to death of what it's going to be in 10 years.
It's going to be very enclosed, I guess. The amount of information that you get is going to be very enclosed depending on where you go.
Yeah, I hope it, you know, there's obviously a liberating part of all the online access and all that stuff. There's the hope that a small local you know, paper, because it's not really a paper, but like that you living in, say, rural Colorado could have local news brought to you from a variety of sources through, you know, like you can do this now. If you go to news.google.com, if you sign in and it knows where you are, in my case, I can get news about the greater Boston area. And looking at the news sources they use, a lot of it's boston.com, which is the Boston Globe.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's not bad, right? I mean, it's local, I guess, you know. I just hope that the positive parts of this occur and that the negative parts are not as bad as I think they're going to be, because I really do think we're going to become more and more isolated from the outside world, which is the exact opposite of what should happen when you're interconnected.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's tough. It's something I am nervous about that.
Really cool stuff, Paul. Not cool in the sense that it's good.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
I don't have a handle on it because it could go either way. You know, maybe it goes both ways.
Well, I know people that exclusive. I mean, even in the tech world, right? With the technorati, there are people that specifically read certain people's articles and blogs, and that's all that they read.
And you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. It's one of the reasons I try to write about things that are competing with Microsoft. You could go to a typical Google blog or people who write about Google or care about Google, and they have no idea what Microsoft's doing. You know, they have no idea. I didn't know, you know, Microsoft has a cloud service for email. That's fascinating. You know, like, well, seriously? I mean, it's amazing how ignorant you can be, not on purpose, but because you kind of focus on the one thing. And I try to be very conscious of that. And I know that a lot of people don't, and it kind of freaks me out, you know. And so
I think most people don't. I think most people don't. You go to. I'm not going to, you know, out websites, but you go to any one of these, you know, top 3 or top 10 tech websites.
Sure.
And I've met some of them. You know, I went to an AT&T event, and I ran into a lot of these guys. You feel dirty. You know? I did. Well, first of all, some of them smelled, but they literally smelled.
Actually. Yeah, well, they're kids, and they live. So you're obviously in New York.
I'm in New York, and you know, a lot of them are these hipster types, and their mindset is so. It's so. I don't even know how to describe it. It was so bizarre.
I know exactly what you mean.
I felt so out of place.
Or imagine how much worse it is in a place like San Francisco, where you're in this weird bubble where you walk around in San Francisco. Apple is the only company on earth. You know, it's. clearly Apple is dominating every industry that they're competing in. You know?
Well, you know what it was?
They're the only thing there.
They're doing it was like it was an AT&T demo of new technology that they're adding. They had an interesting SMS feature that they were going to incorporate. And you have these guys, and you don't know where they're from, first of all. And they're coming, they're like, I'm from, Blabber Crunch.
Yep.
And he's like, so what is this thing? And she's explaining, she goes, yeah, but what does it do? And it automatically, that article that guy was going to write about this product was going to be that it sucks.
Yeah, AT&T
because this
cluelessly
guy
releases the latest piece of crap.
Because this guy has some sort of hard-on for AT&T.
Sure.
I mean, that's just it, and it's from the beginning to the end. And I know, journalism. Listen, I'm not a journalist. I comment on tech stuff. I try to be as fair as possible. I use a Mac. I have an AT&T phone. I have a Verizon phone. If I'm unhappy with something, I'm going to talk about it. But the fact that a lot of these guys go in there with this mindset where I personally don't like this company,
right?
So I'm not even going to give it a chance.
Yeah, why are you here again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't get it right every time. I mean, that's the way it is. We all have our own knee-jerk reactions. We all have our own biases, whether we want to admit it or not. And all you can do is try. But I'm more concerned with, I look at things like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, and I think to myself, you're speaking to a very wide general audience here. You need to be held to a different standard. I do feel like there is a higher standard at those publications, and also at organizations like the Associated Press or Reuters or whatever, where I hope that it's always that way. I'm nervous that it won't be, and that they will succumb eventually to that thing that killed local news, that killed the Boston Globe, that, is just that inevitable reaction. Because for all of the great liberating democratization that occurs from all this online access, you're also hurting the old school stuff. No one wants to go back to the days when we had 3 channels on the TV.
Sure, nobody does. And you know what? Some people argue the other point, Paul. Some people will say, journalism was very one-sided. It wasn't this everybody's equal type of reporting that, a lot of people do now. It was very one-sided. It was your opinion on that subject. But I feel that we're beyond that, and I think it's irresponsible for many people, for a lot of these guys to go in there and to report on something with just one viewpoint, and that's it, and they'll ignore everything else. They'll ignore
because I do write about Windows. A lot of people make that assumption about me,
and that's not the case. I mean, we've had
no, not at all.
On and off air, we've had many discussions, and you've said, I don't like this about Windows, but you've also been vocal about the things that Apple does.
Sure, but when there are all these problems because of these perceived biases. If I rip into Apple, well, it's because I'm a Microsoft guy.
Yeah.
I must be jealous, like I have some personal stake in Microsoft's success or something. I'm in this because I love technology. I would hope that anyone who's involved with news at whatever level is in it because that's what they love, and that they actually do care. And I don't mean to be idealistic about it, but I am worried about the future. And when I think 10 years down the road, I think of the past 10 years and about those things we just discussed, newspapers, local news especially. And it's been a downward spiral. I just hope that there's a recovery. I hope they find some, a point where they stop declining and, okay, we have a business here. This is going to work. And whether it's a combination of, advertising or micropayments or
But it also comes down to the writing too. I mean, it's become lazy writing, right? It's become writing up the press release. You get a press release, you copy and paste it, and there you go. Now there's your article on this new product that's out.
Some of the writing I see in the Boston Globe in particular is so loathsome and horrible. It makes me embarrassed for the people that wrote it. And I have to say, my wife is also a writer. We have these discussions over, breakfast. You can imagine how boring it is in my house. But we're both reading the paper on our devices, and we're talking about these stories. And I've read some stuff lately, even from guys who've been with the Globe for a long, long time, that are just so horribly written. I just feel bad. I feel bad.
Paul, I dare you to get through the New York Post.
I couldn't read a paper like that.
Yeah, they don't know the difference between 2 and 2.
Yeah. No, by the way, I read the New York Times because they have great international coverage, because they have really good business coverage, and because I like reading about the Yankees every frickin' day of my life. That's
me too. Being a Mets fan.
I mean, it's like, Jeez. Well, I feel like I'm really in tune with the New York sports scene. I can tell you that. I followed that Jeremy Lin drama about as much as I could.
I don't know, Paul. It's fascinating because I think you're right. You had a very good point that if you're going to a website, let's say it's a political site and it's extremely left,
sure,
you are never going to get that other aspect of what's happening outside of your little bubble. You know, right or wrong, you'll never see it.
You can pick any volatile topic you want: gun control, religion, whatever. Right. Depending on your own leanings and the sites or newspapers or magazines or whatever that you read, you're going to be seeing, the New York Times has certain kinds of editorials. They just do. They're just kind of left leaning. Sorry, they just are. I mean, they tried to bring in a guy for some time who was like a Republican conservative kind of guy to balance it out, like that was going to do anything. But I mean, that's just not the way it is. And so I'm not so concerned with the New York Times opinions about anything. But I feel like they do a pretty good job of, especially international, that's kind of big for me.
I mean, you know what it is, and we'll wrap it up because we could talk about this for hours, actually.
Yeah,
Paul and I.
yeah.
But,
and this, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
This is why I never wrote this article.
I know.
Because you go flying off in some direction and you've lost track, and it's hard to reel it in. It's just, there's too much stuff.
There is. I know. And, someone here's an example. Someone in the chat room wrote, Fox News is extremely biased, and MSNBC is biased too, but they do a better job at hiding it. Depends on who you ask. I think they're both extremely biased. Yeah. And then there's CNN. And right. CNN is, and listen, I have CNN on all the time.
Yeah.
But if I'm watching the news and here comes Don Lemon talking about Twitter and Facebook and making and saying and quoting Kanye West during a news segment. And I'm thinking, what world am I in? Who do I watch at this point?
CNN is a disappointment to me because in the wake of the radical leanings of its competitors, they should have established themselves
as a center.
As the center.
Yeah. No, they established themselves.
That should have been their tagline. They
become the MTV of news reporting.
Yeah. So I'm not interested in that, and that's a problem, I feel like there's a happy middle ground between the boringness of like a CNBC, we're here on the floor of the Senate, and like People Magazine. Like there's got to be something in the middle of that.
Yeah. Well, they realized, what it was, and we'll wrap it up. After 9/11, what was a huge selling point for a lot of these? MSNBC had, I believe MSNBC was the first one, or Fox, one of them, left or right. They put that ticker on the bottom. And it becomes like that joke about the Microsoft Word where you turn on the toolbars and now it's all tickers. It's all tickers. And that was a big selling point. So they got the ticker, and then the other one got the ticker. And the news on the ticker.
This is contributing to the dumbing of America.
It is.
We can't stay on topic. We have to have like this stuff going on. Like we're like cats, like reaching for the lights darting across the wall. Like can we just focus,
But here's what happens with that ticker, Paul. They turn around and they'll say something like I'm going to make something up. Barack Obama Muslim retreat. And that's all it says.
That's all it says.
So some dummy's going to go and be like, Barack Obama was at a Muslim retreat.
Sure.
And the actual story behind that is that a Muslim retreat had a poster of Barack Obama up and they were burning it. I'm making up a story here.
Yep.
But that's the problem. We don't sit there and ask questions about the news. We just accept it. And the reason why it's gotten dumb is because there's not enough money being funded in there to hire competent people.
They're advertiser driven too.
So the ad revenue's down. So what's happening? You can't find people that are going to, be credible to some extent. Right. So you're hiring a bunch of dummies, and this is all across the board. I mean, print, digital, all across the board. You're hiring a bunch of dummies that don't know anything about the subject. They just know how to do this link baiting type mentality, link bait type blogging. And you're going and clicking. You're like, oh my God, what is this? And that's how we get our information. I read one of the dumbest articles on one of these sites. It was let's call it Blabber Crunch.
Okay.
And they were talking about a company that I know of. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I know the guy that runs this company.
Right.
And it was such a one-sided article saying that this company is a joke, the product doesn't exist, and it's never going to survive. I know the guy that created the company, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And I know the product that they have, and it's a great product, but you could tell that, I mean, knowing the guy, you could tell, like, wow, this guy definitely has something against him. But if you're just reading, you're like, oh, look, it's another crappy tech company that thinks they're going to, you know, save the world with their product line. And that bothers me with this. I don't know, Paul. I don't know.
You know,
I could go on for days.
We're in the tech industry, so we can look out at other people who do what we do, and you can make your own judgments. You know, this is a very small segment of life. However, I mean, and there are more important things going on right now other than, you know, when is the next iPhone coming out, or you know, whatever. They just are. And the problem is, I don't want to look at it too closely because I know it's just going to freak me out. That the level of engagement in those other areas, whether it's international terrorism, you know, national security, whatever it is very similar. You know, there's the petty differences and the little infighting and the lack of credible sources, and, you know, and how much more horrific that is in areas of life that actually matter. You know. Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
So I feel bad about 10 years from now. I think
I feel really bad for 10 years from now. Who knows? There might be some sort of, you know.
I pray. I don't really pray, but if I did, I would pray that was the case. Yeah.
That would be your wish.
Yeah.
It's your genie. Go to our website, guysfromqueens.com. If you miss any portion of the show, of course, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, on Zune, on anywhere that there's an RSS. We're there. You go to winsupersite.com for all things Paul and Microsoft. Paul, do you have a release date for the book? Because people have been asking me.
Yeah, you know, people who have pre-ordered it have written me and a little freaked out because they're like, you know, Amazon told me it was delayed. You know, the book has not been delayed. I mean, we just had bogus dates in, and now we're getting closer to the real date. So the way this is going to work is that Microsoft will announce the RTM of Windows 8 sometime within hours or days, and that sometime after that, I will gain access to the final actual RTM version of the code. I will verify that it is not different from the thing that I saw before, and that the book is ready to go. And we're going to try very quickly to make that happen in the wake of that RTM occurrence. So I think in the next couple of days, I'm actually going to see the pages, like the PDF version of the book, which now exists. It's a little under 600 pages long, by the way. People were asking me about that. I think it's 585 pages or something like that.
Oh, very cool. What was the other one? What was Windows 17?
It was over 1,000 pages.
Wow.
So, you know, and we tried it sounds silly. I cut out a lot of stuff. We had written a lot more. And I didn't want this to be a huge book. So it will be available before the general availability of Windows 8. Absolutely. I mean, that's late October. I mean, so I would imagine you'll be able to buy it, have it maybe as soon as late August, but probably more likely sometime in September, but
before the book comes out, before Windows 8,
before the actual product is available.
The book is available
generally. Yeah,
that's
definitely.
good. Yeah, that's great. WinSupersite.com. Also check out Paul's amazing podcast, Windows Weekly, on the Twin Network every Thursday at 2 p.m. East with Mary Jo Foley and of course Leah Laporte on the Twin Network. Paul, thanks a lot. I had a lot of fun today. I had a lot of fun.
See, I'm disconcerted.
Yeah, me too. I got all worked up
about this news. Well, and it's for the same reason as before. You know, as I've tried to write about, I can't put this into something intelligent and short. You know, it's
I mean, it would have to be an extremely long article.
You just tell stories. You can just tell stories, and that's what I tried to focus it just on the New York Times because I've watched as they've tried to, you know, embrace this digital age, and we'll see how successful they are. They seem like they're doing pretty well.
Oh, and congratulations, 14th year anniversary for WinSupersite, right?
Yeah, yep.
Very, very cool. Yep. By the way, before we wrap up, the chat room is saying, did you hear that? Andrew said Barack Obama is a Muslim, and he left the country on a retreat. And that is how we report things
See
in
if
this
you can
country
get
now.
That will be on the Drudge Report and then Fox News by 11 o'clock.
All right, guys. We'll see y'all next week on What the Tech. Good night. On What the